1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, our man James Ham. Hammer, what's happening, buddy?
What's going on, guys?
Let's do that. Yeah, I like that look. What's going on, man? How was the trip to Chase Center last night?
It was fun. We carpooled. So I loaded the car full of some of these young reporters, and I was the dad. I drove them all
you're
down.
A chaperone, yeah,
in the minivan, and it was good stuff. We had a good time. Good basketball conversation. Bad basketball to watch. I don't buy the comeback, but overall, it was good. I mean, you always forget, you do this long enough, and you forget just how much the early season takes a toll on you. Going through training camp, and then one game, but then the first back-to-back and driving all the way down and back. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not a young man anymore. I feel it. I feel these back-to-backs. So, yeah, it's fun.
Hey, James, about the actual game yesterday, 89 points in the first half. Can't happen. It can't happen. Kings were getting ripped to shreds about the 89-point first half. Maybe I'm being too nice on them here a little bit, because they should still be, kind of raked over their coals for it. But the Kings had 71 and a half. And I just thought that was a little bit of how the game was being played. 89 is not good, but it's not like the Kings were just god awful and they were down 89 to 56. The game was up and down. Both teams were making shots. The shot making, the Warriors are making threes. They got in the penalty earlier, whatever the case may be. I thought it was an up and down game that lent itself to a lot of points being scored. Is that being too soft on the Kings and saying, no, it's terrible, should have played better defense? Or do you see what I'm saying a little bit?
No, I understand what you're saying, but Mike Brown brought it up in postgame. He said, how many times do we make a basket and they're scoring in transition after a made basket? He's like, that's just unacceptable. And I mean, there's something to Steph Curry getting on a heater, but even before he was hot, everyone was destroying them. So I mean, it was back and forth. It was fun, and then the Warriors showed you who they are, and the Kings weren't able to respond. And that's partially because the Warriors have done it for years, and it's partially because the Kings haven't been together very long, and they don't know how to respond to something like that. And there's no way to defend giving up 50 points in a quarter.
No.
There's just not. There's not. And I'll be honest with you, that should have been closer to 55 or 60. That could have been a 100-point half. The way that second quarter went, the Warriors just let up in the last final minute and a half, 2 minutes of the quarter. That was an absolute clinic that was put on, and didn't matter who was doing it. The Kings didn't have an answer. I kind of felt a little bad for Mike Brown because, they gave him his ring before the game, and then they reminded him who they were and who he was playing against and who he was coaching for. And then I feel like they also had a conversation about that at halftime and let off a little bit.
Oh, they did not let off him. They would have beat him by 100 if the opportunity presented itself.
I don't know. To me, that looked like
I think it's by nature a team up a big. They lack. Steph wasn't playing. The starters were out. I think, and then you had a bunch of reserves for the Kings who were like, I'm getting minutes. I'm going to make the most of them.
Yeah, but if you would have let Steph and Clay and the real Warriors play the entire third quarter, that would have been a 150, 160-point night.
Well, they wouldn't have done that to anybody, not just because it was Mike Brown there.
Yeah. I don't know. All I know is that, when you look at the final box score and it says it's a 5-point game, that wasn't a 5-point game.
Well, and that's different, though. That's by the run that happened in the fourth quarter, and we were talking earlier. I don't know what to make of it. I don't really put any stock into it. No. I never thought the Kings were going to win. I thought it was, all right, cool. You came back. You made it interesting for 2 or 3 possessions. But the bigger question, James, is, all right, you just laid out all of the bad. Okay, how do we fix it?
Yeah, that's the biggest question that I have too. I mean, clearly Mike Brown after the game hinted that Keegan Murray was going to start moving forward. But even if he doesn't, I mean, he played 38 minutes. I mean, he leads the team in scoring in the last 2 games. I mean, not non-scoring in minutes played in the last 2 games. And I mean, I thought Keegan, like, he needed to go through a back-to-back like that, where you start to feel what it is to go through games. After giving your all the one night and coming up short, and then having to face it the next night. So I'm glad that Mike Brown did run him out there for whatever 38 something. But yeah, I think the way you fix it is you stay together on defense and you keep getting better, because this team is a work in progress. We know that. They have their basic offense, their basic defensive sets in, and they need to grow off of those. The Kings have 3 days off right here to prepare for Memphis, where they can clean up a bunch of stuff, and that's good. But at the same time, Fox has been incredible. Sabonis is coming around. Keegan Murray has been like off the charts. Kevin Huerter, even though he had a bad shooting night, Kevin Huerter goes like, what do you go, 1 of 9 from 3, and he's still shooting 48% from 3 on the season. I mean, and that's even taking in consideration like small sample size stuff. That's nuts that he's still that high up. But it's time. It's time for Harrison Barnes to start playing. It's time for Davion Mitchell to snap out of it. We saw Malik Monk really start off slow the first 2 games and come around in game 3. It's time for these other guys to come around, because this team does not have that type of depth for 2 or 3 of their major rotational players just to not be able to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree with it. I think that these guys, and you look at Davion, I guess there's a little less of a sample size with him, but Harrison Barnes, the way he's playing right now is unacceptable, because he's a much better player than that. And that's just not going to get it done. I want to say the same for Davion, because, I think Davion is better, but, he's the second-year player. Maybe I have it wrong or something like that. But we've seen it from Harrison. It's just, it's unacceptable the way he's been playing in these first 3 games, and he's got to be better, man.
I have a piece that's going to go up in just a little while, probably while we're on the air here. And I looked at some of the numbers, and the problem that I have is, you always look at a 3-game sample size and go, okay, let's be cautious here. It's the same numbers from preseason, and it's the same look from preseason. And that's when you start to go, okay, preseason means nothing, but it's still 4 games. You can still look at those 4 games and look at stats and say, okay, what went on here? And Harrison shot 2 of 16. What's
Real
that?
Quick, I'll take it a step further. It's the same. It looks the same as last year.
Well, no, I mean, defensively, maybe.
He had a 4-point performance last year, too. I know he'd have one where he'd have 25, but he looks like the same player.
Yeah, I mean,
he looks like the same.
But I'll take a player who averages 16.4 points per game and shoots 39% from 3 over a player who went 2 of 16 in the preseason from 3 and now has missed his first 5. And if you're going to play for a team that's 4th in the NBA at 40.7 3-point attempts per game, and you're the starting small forward, and you're playing 29 minutes a night, and you've only taken 5 3-pointers through 3 games, like, I'm confused. Like, where is it? Is it something wrong physically? Is it something wrong mentally? And like, I just can't imagine at this point that Harrison Barnes is just like lost it. Like, he's lost the fastball, but steps to the line and shoots 53% from the free throw line. He's a career 80% shooter. So something feels off, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to fix it, but it's something that has to be addressed like very quickly, because as of right now, does KZ Okpala deserve to lose his starting job for Harrison Barnes? I don't think he does. Like, if Keegan Murray is going to start, who should sit? And like, if you're just looking at the numbers, like, there's one guy who just, like, on the defensive end, on the offensive end, it just doesn't matter. So again, like, he's earned the right to have some leeway here, but Like your team's 0-3. Like how many games do we have to go through where it's like, okay, what is happening here? And this can be on Mike Brown to figure out.
Any scenario where we potentially see two new guys in the starting lineup, and we've proposed, we've talked about this in the past as hypotheticals, but kind of here we are. Obviously, Keegan Murray would be one, and then Malik Monk is the other, with Kevin Huerter sliding down to the starting three, Keegan Murray being the four, and Malik Monk being at two.
Yeah, I just think if you looked at the way that Monk ran the second team in this last game, that is what you were hoping for. And it's not what he scored 16 points. Like, we expect him to score. But Mike Brown talks about this too. Like, we expect De'Aaron's, he's scoring 30 points a game. That's fine. Like, he's a scorer. That's what he's supposed to do. I need you to do other things. And the good thing is Fox is averaging like 5.7 rebounds per game. He's averaging 7 assists per game, but he's also playing defense. Mm-hmm. And people could argue with me. He's playing defense. I'm watching, and he is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. He's playing defense. And so when it comes to Monk, if Monk can somehow come off the bench and do anything close to what he did in this game, where he puts up 16 points but 8 assists and 7 rebounds, like, that's why you went out and got Monk. That's why you paid him close to $10 million a year. And so I think it's better to keep him on that second unit, because for him to be really effective, part of his game is to get those 4 assists, 5 assists, 6 assists. That's part of who he is, and how he gets going is to get going downhill with a guy like Richaun Holmes, set him up for a couple of times, then get his own, and then like kind of go back and forth. And that's really tough to do when you're in a starting lineup with a bunch of other guys who are heavy usage, heavy minutes guys.
So with that, James, we are 3 games into the season, and I think we all agree Keegan Murray's a good enough player to start. He should be starting. It's productive enough and all this other stuff. Is there any other like minutes rotation changes that need to change, or would that be a little bit of a panicky move? Like, should the only thing that really change minutes distribution wise is Keegan's in the starting lineup now, and see what happens to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think at some point you do have to give players time to like figure out who and what they are in a new system with a new head coach. I think like we're watching Davion Mitchell really struggle to figure out who he's supposed to be playing next to Monk. And, I wrote about that, about their chemistry building during training camp, but then you get to the regular season and, Monk started struggling with his shot early on. Davion has struggled. I think Davion struggled overall. He's looking for a shot a lot. When he's looking to distribute, I think he's much better. When he's playing off ball, I think he's much better, and he needs to move off ball, which is a problem. He's not sort of finding those seams that you need to find, that you see Huerter. Like, how many times do you just look and Huerter is wide open because he's moving without the ball so well? And it's something that, guys like Davion, guys like De'Aaron, it doesn't come natural to them. They're used to playing on ball. So, yeah, I mean, as far as like blow it up, like I don't think you can blow it up 3 games into the season. I think you have to give Davion a little bit more time. I think you've got to give Monk more time to like figure out this role, but also Richaun Holmes. Richaun Holmes, is a guy who he played better, and I think his numbers look better in this last game. But did anyone else notice that it was James Wiseman who got half of those points to start the second quarter and just absolutely was everywhere? And the whole time you're wondering where is Richaun Holmes in the pick and roll? And they just got killed in the pick and roll like one time after another after another. And so I think that you can't panic, but you need these guys to settle in and find their spots. And it's not easy. It's not easy to go from a guy who's been a starter for 3 years in Sacramento to a guy coming off the bench playing 14 minutes a night like Richaun Holmes is. It takes an adjustment period, and it takes an adjustment period when you again aren't playing with Tyrese Halliburton, who throws a perfect lob to you every time and gets you wide open. The Kings aren't even running pick and rolls like 90% of the time. So Richaun has to figure things out, just like I think a couple of these guys do.
I thought Richaun was a little more aggressive yesterday, particularly. I mean, and it may be one of those cases where it felt like there was nothing on the line, because it felt like for the bulk of the the third quarter on that the game was over. And then, obviously it very much wasn't. And Rashawn was a part of that team that made a run. But that was the most aggressive I think he's been this offseason, this season, and it was effective. And it feels like a lot of guys haven't figured out, and you could maybe throw Harrison Barnes into this equation too. It feels like there's a handful of guys who haven't really figured out the appropriate aggression level on the offensive end yet.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I don't want to give, like, playing a new role is one thing, right? And I really do believe that for some of these guys, it's like playing a completely different role, like for a guy like Holmes. But like for a guy like Harrison Barnes, like you just can't make that excuse, because you're watching Keegan Murray, who basically plays the same position, and just goes out and does his thing, So, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well,
there has to be
player though. Like Keegan's a better player than Rashawn is.
Well, no, but I'm saying Harrison.
Oh,
yeah. I'm saying then Harrison. I mean, like, look, those guys play different roles. Sure, Harrison and I mean Rashawn and Keegan, they play different roles, but Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes play the same role, and just one of them is coming in and like averaging 17.5 points a game in his first 2 games, even though he doesn't know any better, and the other's averaging 7, and those 7 aren't easy to come by. And so you're just wondering what it is where the adjustment happens, and if it can happen, or if that's not the adjustment that has to be made, that has to be more drastic. And so, yeah, I'm confused by what's happening with Harrison Barnes. And, we haven't really talked to him that much, but when we do, he always says, this team needs to be given the opportunity to be this year's team and not have 16 years weighing on them. And that's okay, but
he's right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that remark.
I agree, but then how am I supposed to look at Harrison Barnes, who has a 10-year track record of who he is, and then look at the players that I'm seeing now? Because that doesn't make any sense to me either. So I understand, like, giving this group the benefit of the doubt, but I also know that, the game is based on statistics and off of track records and off of, what you did last year. And, I've seen a player that, that I think we all respect greatly, and for who he is on and off the court, and he doesn't look like the same guy all of a sudden. And to me, that seems a little strange, especially when he's 30 years old and he's not a guy who slacks. He came in great shape. If anything, he looks a little lighter than normal. And, those are things that you just kind of look at and go, okay, I'm not sure what's happening here. It's 3 games. But it's more than that if I go back to preseason. And I feel bad for Mike Brown in a sense, because when you walk into a season, one of the few things that you figured you did not have to worry about at all was Harrison Barnes.
So they played 3 games. They had a game that I feel like they should have won against Portland to start the season. And I don't even mean that like I was telling Damien, not like looking at the schedule beforehand. I'm watching the game. They let that one slip away at the end of the game. I think they should have brought that home. Clippers game, that was whatever. And then really a game that they weren't really in against Golden State. But I look at those 3 games, James, and I don't – obviously the only thing that matters is wins and losses. But I don't feel like they're that far away from – playing, good enough basketball to be winning. Like, I don't think they're just getting worked in these games. Clippers games, they got to make their free throws. They started really slow against the Portland Trailblazers, and the Warriors just beat them, but the Warriors are the defending champions. Those things happen. Are you seeing the same thing as well, where it's not like they're playing bad basketball? They just have to tighten some things up a little bit? Is that a simple fix for you?
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with that, and I agree for the most part. Even if you look, like, when shots fall, you look like a different team, right? And I think in the first 2 games, shots fell. In game 3, like, the 3 ball wouldn't fall, and that was a problem. Like, you can't keep up, like, in an arms race when you're coming out there with a slingshot. Like, that's just not the way it goes, And I felt like they were overmatched mainly because the shot wouldn't go. If they were hitting the 3. I mean, that could have been a really epic back and forth, but, it's something that this team has to – there's always something that's wrong, right? And so the first two games, it was what you brought up. They couldn't hit a free throw, and they lost games because of missing free throws. And that's again like basic basketball 101. You can't lose a game by 2 points when you missed 11 free throws. And that's what happened with the Clippers. And again, the Portland game was the same thing. They missed way too many. I thought they improved that against Golden State. There was a better focus on that. And then they stopped hitting threes. So, like, we're going to have to get through this phase where guys are having, three guys are having great games and two guys are having bad games. We're going to have to get through the phase where they're just flat out blowing games on missing bunnies or basics like free throws. And then you're going to have games where you lose because you can't hit the three. And so we've kind of seen like everything in the first three games. But the schedule doesn't let up. So like you would like to think that they're going to be able to sneak a win here or there, but you have to actually go out and not sneak a win. You have to go out and dominate someone. You have to do everything right for 48 minutes and show that you can do it and get the first win so you can start building on something. And I think that's what we're gonna see over the next couple of days. A team that's laser focused on changing the one outcome that matters, and that's the win and loss.
Is something missing from Domantas Sabonis these first three games?
No, I think what's missing from Domantas Sabonis is that a team tried to use a defensive player in the starting lineup, and you can't just use a guy who not only it's not that he's a bad 3-point shooter, but KZ Okpala, I don't think he's done anything wrong. It's just that no one respects that he's going to hit a bunch of 3-point shots. So what I've seen from Sabonis is a dude that is getting double teamed almost every single time he touches a ball. And if you want to gum up the Kings, you just surround him with people. Has he missed some easy shots? Sure, he's missed some easy shots, but the easy shots that he's missing is trying to fight through like a 7-foot brute that's beating on him the entire time. And I think that like watching him in the first three games, every single time you look, he's just getting smacked and held. And the fact that the Kings don't have five guys on the floor that can beat you, one being him, but four other guys that can beat you, it just allows the other team to sink off and really get on Sabonis and make him pay the price. And so we're just not seeing the flow, the movement that I think we will see once Keegan Murray is in the starting lineup. And I'll even say this, like, I think the biggest issue with the Harrison Barnes situation is if you have Barnes and KZ Okpala who aren't doing anything from the 3-point line, like there's just not going to be any spacing. And Fox has been able to hit his threes through the first three games, so that's great. So that's at least helped. Herder's been phenomenal shooting the three ball, but you can't have two guys who are non-factors on the offensive end in your starting lineup. And unfortunately, one of those guys happens to be Harrison Barnes, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's the situation you're in at this point.
Yeah, I agree with those things that you said, for sure. I also want to see him be a little bit more aggressive, with his shot. At least, like I said, I've seen the 10-minute breakdown or the highlights of Clippers Kings. I want to go back and watch the whole game. But the last game last night, and then the game against the Blazers, I felt he was around the basket and was doing this thing where he's pivoting all over the place, looking for somebody to, pass it to. I want to see him be more aggressive around there. You're a skilled big man. Nurkic is a little bit bigger than you, but other than that, you're just as big, if not bigger than these other guys. I feel that he's starting off the season looking to pass a little too much. One of the things that also makes you special is the fact that you could average 18, 19 points a night. Look for your shot. That's how this offense works as well. And I understand he's being double teamed, but I even go on some of these offensive boards. Like he'll get the offensive board and be pivoting around and looking to kick out finish. I need you to finish. So
I get it.
More aggressive, a little bit more selfish.
Yeah, I mean there definitely have been some bunnies. I know, what did he shoot? He started 3 of 10 in the previous game, but it goes back to
so many of them at the rim.
He did. but none of them were unguarded. I mean, all of them were like contested. And the point I'll continue to get back to is that they aren't just double teaming him like when he gets the ball and he starts to back down. They're double teaming him almost the whole time. So they're stopping him from making passes. They're stopping him from scoring at the bucket. They're also two guys standing there to keep him off the boards. And so he hasn't had one of those breakout games where he's grabbing everything. He had a 13 rebound game. But it plays into the same thing. If the spacing is bad, the spacing is bad. And they're collapsing the lane, which means he can't just muscle through everybody and get to the ball every time and grab the rebounds that you're expecting. I expect a lot of this to get figured out. And, I'm not hitting any panic button. You look at the schedule, you hope that they would be 1-2, but you're going up against Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers on opening night. You hope that you could have got that game, but they made mistakes and they lost it. And so now you got to figure out where you can figure out a place to get a win and then see if you can build off of that. That's a funny statement. Yeah, it's time to fire Luke Walton.
To the time to fire Luke Walton message that appeared.
Yeah.
Get Buddy out of the starting lineup.
Get Buddy out of here. Trade Marvin. What are you waiting for, Monty? We'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about this Kings 0-3 start. We'll find out where James' head is at with this team and what the next couple of days may look like as we continue here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Two quick notes here real quick. When we sign off of the radio, we'll have to sign off on the live stream immediately. We have a 4:00 interview with Jonathan Abrams. So as soon as say goodbye, we're going to say goodbye. So just a quick note on that. We hate doing that to you, especially when James is here. Other note, Connor asks, KC, where can I get that shirt? You can get that beautiful piece of merchandise over at DeLoandKC.com. That's DeLoandKC.com. You can also get this beautiful piece of merchandise over at DeLoandKC.com, and you can get James Ham's wonderful hoodie over at thekingsbeat.com. So there you are, Connor. We appreciate you, man. That new design's going over pretty well. I'm glad people are digging it.
Nice. Yeah, I don't want to be doom and gloom. It's 3 games into the season, and I'm gonna be a straight shooter. There are plenty of things that you can fix. I totally think you can tinker and fix, but it will come down to a point. Do you have the talent? Do the pieces fit? And, again, we keep the last 2 years, I've been saying you need another Harrison Barnes at least. You can't lose one and not have one. It kind of feels like you lost one and you replaced it with one. Maybe Keegan's a little bit better version, which, through 2 games he has been, but that's kind of the player that you need. And if Harrison Barnes decides he's not going to be that player anymore, it's like, man, that's tough. It's tough because it's unexpected,
Yeah.
You thought you had a couple of months to figure this out.
Yeah.
And now you're in a position where you don't have a couple of months. Harrison missed was it the Clippers game? He missed a dunk in the final seconds. And then the Jeremy Grant play where he went right through Harrison to score the winning basket in the final minute. Yeah.
Right at him. A rock bobblehead.
I didn't even look. Through the first 2 games of the season? Because Harrison didn't play that much in this last game because the game got out of control. I know people are like, why aren't they putting Sabonis back in? It's like, because the Warriors are just tricking this game off in the second half. Yeah, he played 31-21 in the first and 34-29 in the second and dropped down to 21. So he's averaging 29 minutes a game. But those 29 minutes are a bit skewed because of the last game.
And by the way, I see my boy Connor in here. Ask him about the shirt. You know what we did on Saturday, Connor? Smashed them boys. Going to the semifinals.
Doing that.
Who we playing in the semis?
These videos are going to get flagged because you keep doing that.
I can't remember who it is, but it doesn't matter. My boy Roro and the whole crew, they're going to be ready. Let's go. Let's effing go. Sac Republic. About to smash these boys.
And your Sac State. Oof.
Stingers up.
Bravo. Bravo, Sac State.
David Patrick tomorrow.
Yeah, man.
Nice. You got to get what's the running back's name? Skippo?
Cameron, you talking about Cameron?
Scatterable.
Yeah,
Scatterable.
Scatterable.
Yeah. Get him on, man. College athletes.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. That dude reminds me of like Mike Allstott.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Yeah.
Lazy, chill. Chill.
Man.
Good stuff. You weren't here for the wet spot on the floor conversation.
Man.
Oh my gosh.
There was
Oh my God.
I can't remember. There was wet spot and there was one other line.
Oh, I said something else. Oh,
in the wood.
yeah.
In the wood. Yeah.
Lay in the wood.
Got bad.
Yeah.
Got bad. It got really bad.
It did. It did get bad. It was, but it was when Sabonis he slipped down on the floor. Well, first he got knocked down, and then when he got knocked down, his sweat was everywhere, and then he got up and fell down like I think 2 or 3 times. It was like Keystone Cop stuff on the wet spot on the floor. Yeah.
Let's hit the wet spot, not once.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my!
How much? How much time do we have? I can tell a funny story.
We're back. The show's we're live on the radio, so everyone calm down. Calm down. We're having a moment here in the chatty house. Twitch.tv/ESPN1320, YouTube.com/ESPN1320. Wherever you're listening, we appreciate you so much for being here.
It's like dealing with a sophomore class.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. All right, 3 games in, James. We know the schedule ahead. It's tough. Been saying for days now they're going to have to beat a good team. They've got the Grizzlies coming up. They've got Miami coming up a couple of times. Where are you at? Like, what is your honest assessment right now of the Sacramento Kings?
Well, I mean, they have to split the next 2 games. They have to find a way. Like, if you finish 0-10 in your first 10 games, like, there ain't no excuses there. Like, that we start like figuring out what size shoe Victor Wembanyama wears. Like, that's like, you got to start changing your mind on what this season looks like. I don't know, 0-10. Maybe not 0-10 because I mean, I think they can pick up a couple of wins, and but even still, like 2-8, 3-7, like that's not great, and the season could turn pretty quickly if they don't look out. I guess the one thing you could look at is the way that the Pelicans turned the corner last year and became a much better team.
The other thing, and I mentioned it earlier, James, you were there for it. The year, I think it was George Karl's first full year. It was the year he got cursed out by DeMarcus Cousins. Drake came into the locker room. Then they start 1-8. Then they start like 1-8, 1-9. Then they obviously didn't make the playoffs. But there was a moment in January, I remember specifically, where they went into sole possession of the A spot, right?
Well, the year they traded DeMarcus Cousins, they were a game out at the All-Star break when they traded him.
Was that the same year?
No,
I
that's the
remember
next year.
I remember
That's Jaeger's first year where they got all the way back.
No, so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The year they started 1-8 or 1-9, whatever it was with Carl, they came back at some point to salvage the season a little bit and be in the 8 spot. So like even if they start 3-7, 2-8, it's not good. It's not what you want, but it's not. I wouldn't go to Victor at that point. Like just start playing one game at a time, playing better basketball.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. If you look at the front half of the schedule, the first 10 games, the one good thing is that, they did start 1-8 under George Karl, or 1-7 under George Karl, and they did claw back in. The one good thing though about when you play 10 really tough games to start the season, that means you got 10 really tough games out of the way. And so that's a good thing. I mean, the Kings faced the Warriors, 3 times in the first 11?
Yeah.
Or first 12. I mean, that's really not all that great for anyone. It's just, that's tough. So you got to find a way to battle through and to pick your spots. Again, the one game that really stands out is a Portland game, but just as easily they could have won the Clippers game, and then we're not having sort of this panic moment with this team. And even still, I don't really panic about the 0-3 start as much as I do the production of some of the players. That's a much bigger issue. It's a much bigger thing that stands out than anything. Like, where do you go from here? And how do you get someone going? How do you try to, change whatever's happening and make a difference? And I'm not sure. Like somebody asked Mike Brown last night about Harrison, about what was going on with him. And he said, well, that's kind of a question for him. And it was like, okay, well then the question for you is, why do you keep playing him? Like that's the next question that's coming your way, because if you don't want to, talk about what might be going on with the player, then at some point that player shouldn't be playing. And that decision, if you don't make it, is on you. It doesn't matter who it is on this team. If De'Aaron Fox doesn't want to hit a 3-pointer for 2 weeks, then I wouldn't, and he's not putting up numbers, then, it goes for everybody. Sabonis, it doesn't matter who it is. Somebody has to answer for that. And if the player isn't, maybe the player will say something. I know last night Harrison was tied up during post game and was having a conversation with another reporter that we weren't able to get in on. And so we didn't go over and have a conversation with him, but that conversation is coming. It's got to be this week, just like what in the world is happening, because that's not something that's typical. So yeah, again, I don't want to panic about the 0-3 start, because, those things happen. It's that you got to start to wonder where a couple of your players are.
Yeah.
We're big on vibes, James.
They do. They don't have bad vibes. I don't think there's, like Sabonis said, hey man, we're fine. We're totally fine. And, Fox, I think his quote could have been taken out of context. That's why I put it up with the video. But he basically was saying like, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm averaging 31 points a game. It doesn't matter, like, if we're not winning. Like, it wasn't like a derogatory thing he was saying. He was saying like, look, no, like, it's fine that I'm averaging that, but I don't care. I want to win. And, whatever it takes to win. And I think he's been really good. He's been doing everything in his power to win. Even when I saw him come back in the game against the Warriors, he didn't come in looking to steal the thunder and be the hero. He came in trying to continue what was happening and facilitate for his teammates and get them even easier shots and better looks. And that's what I saw from him. It's just, a few shots didn't fall.
I think it's really important that Mike Brown, for one, but also somebody in that locker room. When I say locker room, I mean players. Multiple people can do it. Keeps these guys locked in and focused. And maybe they won't have a problem with it at all, because it's just a different group of guys and they can do that. But let's just say, for argument's sake, they start 0-5. These conversations and these type of thoughts should be happening right now. Let's just say they start 0-5, but they play the same way they've been playing. I think it's very important for them to understand no need to panic. We're on the right track. Okay, we're on the right track with how we're playing the game. There are things where we're not taking care of business that could be costing us wins and losses, whether it's missed free throws or a couple of minutes of lackluster defense or anything. Those could be costing, but it's not the whole operation. It's not like all this work we've been putting in since we came to Sacramento early is for naught. We're just, we just think we can't get it done. It's just a little fine tuning. I think it's really important for Mike Brown and some of the leaders in that locker room to make sure everybody understands that and stays on that same type of wavelength.
Yeah, Mike Brown mentioned, I think it was sometime this last week, that one of the first things that he did was to build in a leadership council, like on the team. So it's Sabonis and Fox and Barnes and someone else. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Davion. But they have like a leadership council that's supposed to be there for these moments and help out. I've always said it, like, again, like, especially with the new coach, like Mike Brown, this is going to be his team early on. He's going to be the leader, the voice, all that stuff of this team. And for people who might say, well, you want Fox to step up and be some sort of leader, I'll just point to the fact that he's averaging 31.7 points, 7 assists, 5.7 rebounds. He's playing defense. He's averaging 1.3 steals. He's locking up guys. He's doing everything in his power to try to will this team to victory. And that, to me, is what a leader does. You don't have to be some stand up on a podium or on a chair and start yelling and screaming and dragging everybody in. You can have those guys, and they're great. But at the NBA level, you also need greatness. And what De'Aaron Fox has been in the first 3 games of the season is greatness. And so that's what you kind of hope that you can get. Like, if there is leadership that needs to happen, it's like, hey, jump on my back. Let's go. Let's get this win, and let's finish this thing off. And I think we've seen that from him.
James, if I said you got one reason that the Kings have lost these 3 games, could you pinpoint one? Has there been a
yeah, I mean, like, I know it's not what a lot of people want to, it's newness. Like, if I was going to say there's one word, like, it's great and all that you're putting in a new offense and a new defense, and that you've got some, a defensive guru and all that stuff. It takes time. I mean, currently, right now, the Kings just got walloped, although it looks like a 5-point loss. That wasn't a 5-point loss. They gave up 130 points. They're 20th in the league or 19th in the league in defensive rating right now. That shows you that they're making improvements. Last season, they were 27th overall. Right now, they finished last year at 25th in offensive rating. They're 15th in offensive rating right now. Like, the signs are there that this team is not nearly as bad as they are. Like, their net rating, they're a negative 3.9, and there are teams with winning records that don't have a negative 3.9 net rating between, the offensive rating and the defensive rating. Again, you're getting beat by the stupid things that, like, if you would have told me that they lost 2 games almost exclusively because they missed free throws.
See, that's the thing. That's what I was looking for, because I'm not buying the newness thing so much, especially when the Utah Jazz are 3-0. Now, I don't think that's going to last, but the fact is, three games into the season, the Utah Jazz, with a completely different roster, or for the most part, and a new head coach, has beaten 3 pretty good teams to start the season. That's more of what I was looking for when you look at the fact that they and we talked about this, James, all preseason. You were going to lose a regular season game by missing your free throws, and you could probably make an argument they might have lost 2.
No, I think they did. Yeah. I mean, it's just sitting there. Like, that's the low-hanging fruit. I'll also say that, like, the Kings have put a lot of pressure on themselves, and they understand the schedule that's in front of them. The Utah Jazz have... They're just all like, hey, let's go out there and play so we too can get traded somewhere else. I mean, that's what they're doing. You got a bunch of guys who, there's no pressure on that team. And they know that this is short-lived and that there's no way that they can keep doing this. They can have the me against the rest of the world mentality all they want. Danny Ainge will, like, smell that out from his office and go, oh, no, that's not what we're doing here. You're all getting traded now. That is what it is. Like, right. They have no interest in what's happening, but there's also, you have a bunch of players who go in and a bunch of teams that walk into a team against a team like Denver, who have such lowered expectations about what their evening is about to be like, and then they're getting thumped because they're not paying attention, they're not ready, they're not game planning enough for a team that, again, they're NBA players. They're guys who are gonna go out there who like didn't get the memo about this team being bad and trying to lose every game.
Yeah.
Kamara tweeted, our guy Kamara tweeted, the Jazz are 1 win away from Danny Ainge trading for Russell Westbrook.
Oh,
Heck yeah.
Even
that's
unnecessary, but that's pretty.
That was clever. But James, yeah, to that point though, it's like what you talked about with the Kings. I mean, I said this earlier in the show as well. Do you want to start the season off better? Absolutely do. You want to start the season off better. That feels better, even if they were 1-2 or whatever the case may be. Do you buy what I'm about to sell to you? And that's that this is no different than games 52, 53, and 54. It's a 3-game stretch where they lost 3 games. It feels a little different because it's the first 3 games we've seen, and this is all you have to go on. But at the same time, it's 3 games on an 82-game schedule, and they've lost all 3. Newsflash, they'll probably go another time on this schedule where they'll lose 3 games, and probably 2 of them they should have won, and we'll be frustrated. Now, at that point, we may not stress as hard because they may be 2 games over 500 or something like that. It's part of the schedule. It happens.
Yeah, I buy what you're selling. I'll say the one downer, though, is you had a really good buzz going in Sacramento, and I think that tickets were about to be really hard to come by in Sacramento. And if you get to game 40 and this team hasn't really like made the shift where they are actually succeeding and actually like close to the 500 mark or like, like they're showing that they're pacing, then you're going to start playing in front of fewer and fewer and fewer fans. Mm-hmm. And that to me is part of, the Kings haven't been a good home court team at Golden One Center at all. But like, man, the crowds the first 2 games have just been incredible. Yeah. Like even if you look at Saturday night, I mean, how many people were at the Republic game? How many people were at the Sac State game? That was still, if it wasn't a sellout, it was really, really close. It was a great, energetic crowd. It's a lot easier to win those games than when you're playing in front of 7,000 fans and there's ambivalence and you hear from fans every single shot you miss. You're hearing something. We've already had 2 refuse suck like chants in the first 2 games that were like loud and crazy and boisterous. Like the fans have really been engaged and like fully in. So that's one of the things I worry about. Like you keep losing games and they end up spending their money elsewhere.
Nothing unites fans more than bad officiating.
That's right. on the home opener, I was walking around for a quick second and ended up stopping and talking to somebody I knew. And we were by the fence. There was this one really belligerent fan. Like he was going in on the rest. I said, "Settle down, pal." In my head, it's not my job to tell him real life.
You didn't go over and like
that ain't my job. That's not what I do. I'm not here quality control. But in my head, I was like, "Settle down, pal."
Yeah,
we were adamant about the refs on that night at least.
The refs have been like they've drawn the ire, and again, I don't think that there's been a single game where the refs really impacted the game at all. I mean, the Terrence Davis play, I guess
that was terrible.
I guess, but again, you got to know better. And Terrence took it on himself. He didn't blame the officials. He knew. So yeah, I mean that wasn't great
thing to do, but it was still there was no need for that call.
Yeah,
there was no need for it.
It was bad. Absolutely.
Yeah. Not great.
And even the Sabonis kickball, I mean, he did kick it with his foot, but
I was able to break that one down. No, he popped that thing up with his foot to his hand.
No, he did, but I'm trying to remember the play. Did Damian have control of that? Like, did he tap it out?
He tried to pass it to his teammate that was over by the Kings bench, and Domas ran by, and instead of leaning all the way down and scooping it up with his hand, he stuck his instep out and popped it up maybe 6 inches off the floor to his hand. He just served it up to himself. Yeah.
No, he absolutely did. I was just trying to remember. I couldn't remember if Damian Lillard had control of the ball when he did that.
No.
Remember, he fell and he was little bit of a scramble. I couldn't remember now.
Yeah, it was a scramble, and then it would have been a breakaway. That would have been a huge moment too.
They
Yeah,
were
it's just
one. Yeah.
it's a game of inches.
Game? Is this this was the wet spot game?
Sophomore class. Bring it back.
I just want to make sure I got the games lined up. This was the wet spot game.
Definitely.
Nurkic repeatedly threw him to the ground over and over and over and over and over again. What do you think happens Thursday? Not necessarily in terms of wins or losses. Do you think Keegan starts Thursday? That's my belief.
I'm going to say yes. Yeah. I mean, he's just been so good.
Maybe a tougher question. Who do you think Keegan starts for?
I think he starts for KZ. I think that, again, this is going to be about trying to get Harrison right and trying to figure out how you get him involved. But, again, it's not just that he's 0 for 5 from 3 on the season. It's that he's only taken 5 threes for a team that's taken something like 122.
Wow.
Yeesh. And I mean, he's a guy who's averaging 29 minutes a game. There's only so many minutes on an NBA court, and you need everybody firing away, and especially if that's who you are as an offense. It just, again, most of it just doesn't make sense. So
I mean, even with that being who you are as an offense, you take one shot in a game. You're small forward. What are we doing? It's got to be. He's a better basketball player than that, man. He's got to be better. He has to be better.
Yeah. I do have a good story we can close out with. Our good friend Mark Spears, he decided to sneak up behind me yesterday while we were at the Warriors game, and take his fingers and jam them into my ribs and to startle me. He did miss that I had just poured a cup of hot tea and was trying to bring it over to set it down and put the lid on it. So when he did that, he shook my tea all over my hand, burned the whole back of my hand.
Mark Spears, domestic terrorist
master. And he thought that he had startled me, what is going on? I'm once I spilt one drop, I literally shook so bad the entire cup of tea went all over my hand, and I had just poured it out of one of the little orange spouts. So it wasn't some 3-hour old hot water. Yeah. It literally, as I was pouring it, I read there's a little digital readout that says, caution, water is 200 degrees out of spout. Jeez. And I'm sitting there pouring oh yeah, I'm going to be cautious. And as soon as I turn around,
oh no.
Yeah, he felt super bad. Yeah, it's okay. I survived. I was still able to drive all the kids home in the minivan and get us all back with the burned hand. But yeah, that was our event on Sunday night.
Tell Mark Smears Kenny Smith would never do that. That's a very, very inside joke that we're just gonna end the show on that. We appreciate you so much for being with us. Become a premium subscriber over at the King's Beat. Subscribe to the King's Beat podcast. Check out thekingsbeat.com.